Welcome to the December edition of the CityBiz. This is the last CityBiz for 2020, and we will be coming at you again in the new year. But I'm your host, Melinda Arndt. We've got Michael Halley, City Councilman Michael Halley. We've been doing these CityBiz shows here on Fairfield Fairfield Media Center for, the whole past year and a half, I think. But before that, CityBiz was a show on KRUU. So Michael's been reporting on city council business for a number of years now. And I want to give a shout out and appreciate all that you do, Michael.
It's my pleasure. I enjoy trying to keep people up to date on what's going on in the city, because I know before I was on the council, I felt out of the loop. So I know what it feels like you feel like you don't know what's going on with your city. So it's my pleasure to do this. And yeah, if we count City Business, which was the cruise show, it's been almost 10 years, or I think, we've been doing these shows.
Yeah, so great appreciation, because many of us definitely enjoyed the nutshell version, and rather than just be surprised, like, wow, look at that new thing, or there's this new ordinance that I just found out about. This way if you're tuning in, you're hearing about them in a rather more timely manner. So we have a few topics to cover here in December. We want to talk about the Highway 1 roundabout design, which I noticed in the newspaper recently.
Yep, that was a decision that the council made. So a little background. This was first discussed, this whole project of converting South Main / Highway 1 from Fillmore to Libertyville Road to 3 lanes, so 2 lanes and a turn lane, was first discussed in 2009. So I got on the council in 2010, and it was discussed because at that time, there were these stimulus funds that were available for cities for infrastructure projects. And so the thinking was, well, this is something that would be a good upgrade with the bypass, making the south entrance into town the main entrance for a lot of people. And the development that was going on there that has only expanded since. So that was its first time being kind of fleshed out the way that it is now. 3 lanes, paved sidewalk, paved trail. And then that was also the first time a roundabout was proposed as the way to handle traffic at the intersection of Libertyville Road and Highway 1. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, the Department of Transportation, and it is their highway, and they have the final say in all of it, committed $3 million of their own dollars. Actually, I think it's $3.5 million of their own dollars to the project. So they feel that it's an important upgrade to make to their highway, and then has basically partnered with the city to develop a design that works for everyone. So the city hired Shive Hattery, which is an engineering firm here in Iowa, and they have a lot of experience with roundabouts in many cities, and they have a lot of experience with the first roundabout in a city, which is always, for whatever reason, a little controversial, just because to some people it's unfamiliar. Now, the roundabout design has been around for a long time, and it's growing in popularity because it moves traffic faster than 4-way stops or stoplights. So there's less waiting time, which I think everyone can agree is a good thing. Maybe some people like waiting at stoplights, but I think most of us would prefer to be able to move through more quickly. But they tame traffic, so you have to slow down on the approach to a roundabout. And then they reduce crashes. And so it was kind of an easy decision when we did explore the possibility, the council explored the possibility of a stoplight intersection, a standard stoplight, and found that the benefits of the roundabout made it a better choice for the reasons I just mentioned, and also for cost long-term. There's no moving parts. It's just the round concrete shape, and then the approaches. The only downside to that design is it does take more land because it takes up a little more space. And then we had this little bit of a question: can we or should we attach South Junction Road? And it runs out to the church and to I said this wrong last time. I said the wrong bank. It's Pilot Grove Savings Bank, but also to a lot of the new condos that are out there. And so the DOT approved the design either connecting or not connecting South Junction Road, and left it to the council to decide, because that part of it's really outside of their area and it's more of a city decision. So the council unanimously decided to keep the connection with South Junction open, so the traffic has that as a route to take to get to the church, the bank, and some of the condos, instead of going on an extension of Libertyville Road to the east that will connect with Court Street and running all that traffic through a residential neighborhood. Cost-wise, it was essentially a wash. So we thought, okay, that's the better way to go. And that was the decision that was made. So the idea of a roundabout had already been approved, but this final design was what the council recently decided on.
And it'll be a few years before we are actually experiencing it. So construction scheduled for 2023. It was 2022, but COVID knocked it back a year because the DOT was concerned that the road use tax, which is funded through gas tax, would go down significantly, and it really didn't go down significantly this year. So, but still, they tossed it off to another year. So nothing will physically happen out there until 2023. But it's all approved and ready to go. And another thing that is, I don't know if it's approved yet, but probably still percolating right along under consideration are a new site for the fire station.
Yep. So our fire department is having issues with the current location. They've got so much equipment that doesn't really fit, and it actually causes delay in their response time, the way they have to squeeze everything in and don't have room for putting equipment on and such. And then additionally, the sleeping chambers, that's the only department where we pay someone to sleep. So there's somebody on call 24/7. And the sleeping chambers isn't even in compliance with fire code, which is a little ironic. The only way in and out is through the garage. And so if there was a fire in the garage, that would be a bad thing. So the city purchased the old Department of Transportation property at the corner of Briggs and 4th. And it was a little bit of cart before the horse because we hadn't done our due diligence of looking at all other sites and budgeting in the project, but we had to act quickly because it was up on an auction, and we wanted to get it and secure it to potentially put a new fire station on that site. So we bought the property, then we hired Klinger Associates to do a study on 5 locations. So the locations are the existing location. Can we expand there? Second location is the DOT site I mentioned. Third is the old helipad where the helicopter used to land by the old hospital. Fourth was 12th and Broadway. It's an empty field south of the jail, the county law enforcement center. And then the fifth was there's a city-owned lot on 4th Street by the railroad tracks, where maybe we could, potentially put something. So the report, we haven't gotten the full report, but what we got was, I'm gonna call it response times for the whole city for each location. And what it showed was that the locations that get the best response time for most of the city are the existing location and the DOT site. The others, because they're not essentially located, the response times might be faster for one kind of quadrant of the city, but slower for others. So that's just the initial assessment. The rest of the assessment is going to talk about what would be the cost to build out there, site grading issues, that kind of thing. The one thing with the DOT is there are 2 buildings on site, and one would need to come down, would need to be demolished to put in a big garage for the equipment. And, if that building could be used or repurposed, it's kind of a shame to tear it down. But at the same time, this is a public need. We need an able and ready fire crew for the times that we need them, and they need a facility that allows them to respond as quickly as possible. So we'll get the full report, I say January, and at some point the council will have to make a decision which site we're going to move on, and then design the project and price it out and all that fun stuff. So one step at a time, but deciding on the site was really step one, although we did buy a property before we did that. So we're getting kind of back on track in the flow of how these kind of projects typically unfold.
All right. Well, we will stay tuned for the rest of the report and further progress news in the new year. Another thing we want to mention here is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. What have they been up to? Well,
they've been up to meeting internally. They have not come to council yet with any recommendations, or haven't asked, to hold any events. So I think they're kind of just figuring themselves out. So this committee is new. It's kind of what you would call an ad hoc committee. So the council is able to form these kind of committees as needed. And this one came out of a lot of the national issues that came up after George Floyd was killed by police officers in Minneapolis. That there's a due process for criminals, and they're not to be killed in the street. And so that whole situation upset a lot of people, including Fairfield citizens. We had a Black Lives Matter march on the square, and just wanted to bring some attention to these kind of issues where there's continued racial inequality. So initially the committee, I think, was just called the Diversity Committee, and Mayor Boyer talked about something along the lines of, celebrating our diversity. And then the group themselves wanted to rename them the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee. And I believe those three words are more common these days because they're more descriptive of kind of what the need is. It's talking about diversity without mentioning equity and inclusion doesn't tell the whole story. So the council approved their name change, but council hasn't heard from them yet. So
okay.
They've met a number of times, but to date have not engaged outside of their group. So looking forward to hearing from them. I'd like to see if they have ideas for events or any sort of change in city policy, or just come and talk to the council so that we and the public can hear from them. Something like that. Hopefully in the new year, we'll hear more.
All right. Well, while they have been meeting maybe more, and I was going to say quietly, but at least offline, something that's rather also quiet, but more out in the public, are the little free pantries that have sprung up around town. And that's been a very active little segment. Do we have an update, or we want to give a shout out to, I don't know how many there are now.
There are 7. And
Seven.
It just, this time of year, it just warms my heart so much to see our community doing this, because, I talked about this issue of food insecurity quite a lot during the mayoral campaign last year. And obviously, not winning that election, I felt like, well, I can't move it forward and put it in the spotlight the same as I would have, but to see the citizens of our town pick it up and run with it, this is one of those, I don't even want to call it a silver lining. It's a response to the COVID pandemic that's positive, if that makes sense, because the COVID pandemic has brought food insecurity to the national spotlight. It is, when I was talking about it even a year ago, I still got that response from a lot of people like, what are you talking about? What is food insecurity? And then would explain it, and you still get people saying, no, there's not hunger in our community. It's not that widespread. It really is. It's really sad to realize that in our society, in 2020, that we think we're kind of moving forward and solving social problems, that hunger in a first world country would be such an issue. It just gives you pause. I don't know the solutions. I'm not claiming to know, but I do know that the food is there. If people who have the means can help the people who need the help, then it's a beautiful thing. So some citizens got together. They modeled after it's a national thing. It's basically like modifying or doing a different version of the little free libraries. They're just these nice little things that sit on top of a post that just sit in someone's yard on private property. And the libraries, they put books, and in the little free pantry, they put food. And the 7 locations mean that people from around town can go and take what they need. So it's give what you want and take what you need. So for those of us who have an abundance, we can give. And those who need can come and get what they need. And this is a time unlike any other where this need is strong. So I'm going to put a call out to everyone who's listening to make a Christmas donation to a little free pantry. Find a location near you, and do keep in mind when the temperatures are freezing, glass items, not a good idea. Even some canned items might not work. So there's lists of what are good items to put in there. But, in the spirit of Christmas and the holidays, in the spirit of taking care of each other, this little free pantry project really warms my heart. And I just want to shout out and thank everyone who's been involved so far.
Yeah, I've only seen a couple of them, so I didn't know there were 7. Thank you for that update. And yeah, keep an eye out in your neighborhood. Find out where they are.
Yep.
Thanks. Well, on that note, we are moving right into the holidays. We're taping this just a couple days before Christmas. So wishing you all cozy. I'm sure we'll all be sort of housebound, maybe doing some Zoom Christmases and New Year's with our families.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my family's doing. We're Zooming.
Yeah, I think many of us will be doing that. So wishing you all either Zoom or in person, good holidays, and we'll be back in the new year in January with more CityBiz.